What's going on, everyone? It's Nick, and I'm here to congratulate the Basketball Hall of Fame class of 2020 and 21. So before we go any further, please remember to like. It only takes 1 second, really helps out. Also, please remember to subscribe. I cover basketball, baseball, and football on this channel. If you love any of those 3 sports, this is definitely the place for you. And I will also cover the play-in tournament and the playoffs. With that coming up, I'm thinking about going live for the play-in tournament, so stay tuned for that in case I do. And also, please remember to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my future uploads. And you'll know that I'm live for the play-in tournament and some of the playoff games. Can't guarantee that I'll be live for all of the playoff games, but I'll try to go live for at least some of them. So, let's begin. Of course, I gotta start out with my favorite player of all time, Kobe Bryant. And we all wish he was here to make his speech, but Vanessa, you did amazing. You are really strong. And also, just so everyone knows, I'm going unscripted, so if I miss anything, I apologize in advance. And hey, Vanessa said that Kobe winged every speech he made, so that's what she did. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm winging this whole thing right now. So let's see how I do. So Kobe Bryant, the Black Mamba, 5-time NBA champion, 81 points in a game, 2-time finals MVP, but that does not mean that Shaq carried him. There's a difference between being carried and being the second best player. Kobe was the second best player on the 3P team, but not by a long shot. He was still very much a top 5 player in the league by 2001. Actually, I'd even go as far as saying he may have been top 3 in 2001. But Shaq was not the one carrying the team. You don't carry someone when the other guy bails you out when you foul out in overtime like Kobe did in 2000. Kobe was the leading scorer of the comeback against Portland in Game 7 in 2000. And then there was also Sacramento, where Kobe scored 36 in Game 3, and then Game 4 put up 48 points and 16 rebounds. And the very next game, Game 1 of the conference finals against San Antonio, putting up 45 points. Yeah, Shaq totally carried him, right? I mean, yeah, Shaq was the finals MVP all 3 times, but Kobe very much did his part. With Kobe not winning finals MVP, well, look at this, for example, 2001, second round against the Kings. Or also that same year against the Spurs. Or 2002, the first round against the Blazers, and then the second round against the Spurs. Yeah, the thing was that Kobe was really dominating in those early playoff rounds. He was still doing his thing in the finals, but the thing with Shaq winning those finals MVP is that they were taking advantage of the mismatches, because the big men on the other team, even Defensive Player of the Year Dikembe Mutombo, couldn't guard Shaq. So it was just really a matter of taking advantage of mismatches. And the whole efficiency part, well, Kobe played one of the less efficient eras in NBA history. And for most of his career, he was above league average in field goal percentage. And while taking really difficult shots, of course his field goal percentage is not going to be above 50%. But he was pretty good at making those really difficult shots, and he was doing whatever it takes to win. He wanted to win at all costs, and that's why I admire him so much. If you expect him to have the same field goal percentage or anything close to it as Shaq or Tim Duncan, that's just naive, because Shaq and Tim Duncan were playing close to the basket all the time, so of course they're going to have a higher field goal percentage. And also, with the whole selfish label, well, just ask guys like Pau Gasol or Derek Fisher, even Caron Butler, who Kobe has cited as one of his favorite teammates, even with just 1 year of playing together. Or ask Lamar Odom, or even Matt Barnes has said this himself, that you play hard, you play your role, Kobe will like you. If you don't, then he won't like you. It's as simple as that. He just wants to win at all costs. So, yeah, the media just portrayed him as a villain. In realness, yeah, Kobe was either you play hard, you play your role, and I'll like you. If you don't, then yeah, I'm gonna get on your ass. That's pretty much how Kobe was, and I respect that out of him as a leader. And hey, it resulted in him winning 5 championship rings. And also, hey, he lasted 20 years in the league. Yeah, the last 3 years were rough, but hey, not many other players can say that they played 20 seasons all for one team. In fact, only Dirk has played more seasons with just one team. And also, Kobe, I remember him also saying that about lazy people, that he doesn't even speak the same language as them. So, and hey, Kobe spoke multiple languages, and I have a hard time even learning a second language, but Kobe spoke multiple. The fact that he even taught himself French just to trash talk to Tony Parker. And also when he went to the game against the Mavericks with Gigi and talked trash to Luka in Slovenian. And the fact that he spoke Spanish to Pau Gasol to confuse opponents. Like, that's some genius stuff right there, to be able to speak multiple languages like that. And also, what also doesn't get talked about enough is how many all-defensive teams he made. Now, I probably should know this, being the big Kobe fan that I am, but I think he made like 12 all-defensive teams. I'll check that later. But yeah, all those all-defensive teams just don't get talked about enough. And also, he made his first all-defensive team when he was 21. I think Michael Jordan didn't make his first one until he was 25. And yeah, we can't forget about 81 points in a game, 62 in 3 quarters, 4 straight games of 50 plus. In the following game, when the 50-point streak was broken, he put up 43. And the fact that he was able to lead a team with Kwame Brown, Smush Parker, Chris Mim, Brian Cook, Luke Walton to the playoffs. The only competent player on his team those years were Lamar Odom. And this was before Andrew Bynum developed into a respectable center. So if Steph wins MVP this year, I'm not exactly going to be mad at that if we're going by the standard of who's most valuable to your team. But then the media should have kept the same energy for Kobe in 06 and 07. And yes, I said I'm winging this, so I'm just throwing this in right now. This is one of my favorite Kobe memories right here, when he willed his team to the victory against the Raptors in 2013. Oh, and last, we absolutely cannot forget 60 in his last game ever. Listen closely, you'll hear Gigi saying "Go Dad" as he makes his last free throw.
A 60-point game for Kobe Bryant.
So, Kobe, congrats, rest in peace to you and Gigi and everyone else. And we wish you were here to make that speech. We know you would have crushed it. But I know you'd also be proud of Vanessa for how much strength she's shown during what has to be a really traumatic time for her. And I know you'd be proud of Natalia too for what she's been doing with her life. And Gigi, yeah, from everything I knew, she had such a bright future. Should be here to live it out. I know she'd be ecstatic to see her dad in the Hall of Fame. Just wish you guys were here to experience it. But Kobe, for the memories you gave me growing up, for giving me the love that I have for basketball, and for inspiring me throughout my life, thank you from the bottom of my heart. So now we go on to Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett. And Tim Duncan, the fact that he didn't even pick up a basketball until he was 14 years old. And this was after his mom died of breast cancer, and then a hurricane swept away the water that he would swim in and pretty much took away his love for it. But then he picked up a new passion for basketball and a 19-year Hall of Fame career, a 2-time league MVP. And let's not forget the fact that he carried the 03 Spurs before Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili were able to establish themselves while David Robinson was on his last legs. And he carried that team to 60 wins and a championship. I don't think that gets talked about enough. Like, when we think of carry jobs in the NBA Finals, we mostly think of Dwayne Wade in 2006. But yeah, Tim Duncan in 03, that was definitely a carry job. And it's a total travesty that he never won Defensive Player of the Year. In fact, if any year he should have won it, it definitely should have been 07. But Marcus Camby, no disrespect to Marcus Camby, but he only won it because he led the league in blocks that year. While the Spurs actually, I think, had the top defensive rating in the NBA that year, if I'm not mistaken, or at least somewhere around there. That, if any year, that should have been the year that Tim Duncan should have won Defensive Player of the Year. And also in the fact that he was even willing to sacrifice as he got older. I totally respect the fact that he was always humble and was never about stats and was all about winning. And also, Kevin Garnett said on All the Smoke, we'll get to Kevin Garnett pretty soon, that Tim Duncan, when he trash talked, like, it was like just phrases or gotcha or nice try. You know, he was a quiet guy. And him being a quiet guy in a small market, that didn't get him all the attention. And hey, I respect that he didn't want the attention like that. That's why he retired quietly with no farewell tour. And now, who's better between Kobe and Tim Duncan? I'll leave that up for you to decide. I would say that it's very neck and neck. I won't be mad if you go either way. The only way I will be mad is if you say that one is significantly better than the other. And also, let's not forget how great of a passer Tim Duncan was for a power forward. So yeah, greatest power forward of all time. Congrats Tim Duncan, and the fact that you became the greatest power forward of all time when you didn't even pick up a basketball until you were 14 years old. Now let's move on to Kevin Garnett, the big ticket. The first player in 20 years to go from high school straight to the NBA, and he was well ahead of his time. The younger generation just doesn't realize how versatile he was when he was younger. And him being the great mid-range shooter that he was, if he played today, oh yeah, I think he'd adjust no problem. He'd easily be able to step back and hit threes at a respectable percentage. Although, he didn't have much playoff success in Minnesota. I mean, also the Timberwolves are an extremely incompetent franchise. But hey, you got one in Boston, it had to be against my Lakers.
Anything's possible!
And even though I didn't like you when you were on the Celtics, because that was back when rivalries were real. At least a lot more real than they are now. But still, big ups to you. And also, Uncut Gems was a great movie, although obviously that has nothing to do with why you're in the Hall of Fame. Just had to throw that out there. And Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, and you played with a lot of passion. And you were also quite a trash talker as well. But the fact that you played with that much intensity throughout your career, definitely respect you for that. So congrats to you, KG, as well. And then Rudy Tomjanovic. Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion, right? Can't really say much about Rudy T though, because I didn't start watching basketball until 2001. And yes, I know you were the head coach of the Rockets in their back-to-back championships. And I remember when you were the head coach of the Lakers, and the Lakers were doing okay before you resigned, and then after that, everything just went downhill in that 04-05 season, the first year without Shaq. Also, congratulations to Tameeka Catchings, even though I don't follow the WNBA, so can't really speak on her, but if you're watching this and you do follow the WNBA, you can feel free to comment down below your thoughts on her, but nonetheless, congratulations on this great honor. So, congrats to the entire class of 2020. Now let's move on to 2021. So, Chris Webber and Ben Wallace, two guys that I was highly advocating for a long time. C-Webb, the fact that it took him this long to be in the Hall of Fame is a total travesty. When he was in his prime, before the knee injury in 03, he was right up there with Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Dirk Nowitzki for the best power forwards in the game. This is when I just started watching basketball. And then once again, when basketball rivalries were actually a lot more real than they are now. In the Lakers-Kings rivalry, even though the Lakers owned the Kings, and yeah, shut up about Game 6 of the 2002 Western Conference Finals. You still lost on your home court in Game 7, and the free throw differential wasn't anything crazy, so yeah, no excuses. But anyways, yeah. Up until your injury in 2003, one of the best power forwards in the game, and you finally got it. You finally got in the Hall of Fame, and the fact that the Fab Five scandal really had to hold you back, like, I think that's just an absolute disgrace. And Ben Wallace became a star player not by scoring, but by playing defense, and tied with Dikembe Mutombo for most Defensive Player of the Year awards 4 and 5 years. And although you had your best years in Detroit, I think that 07, yeah, your absence was definitely felt, especially when LeBron went off for 25 consecutive points in the Eastern Conference Finals that year. Now, I don't think that Ben Wallace would have made the Pistons shut down LeBron, but he definitely would have slowed him down for sure in that game. So yeah, I think that the Pistons definitely missed him in 07. And he also anchored one of the greatest defensive teams of all time. 2004 NBA Finals, if you're just looking at the box score, you would probably think that Shaq owned Ben Wallace, but that's not true at all. First of all, Ben Wallace actually out-rebounded Shaq, while Shaq is 7'1" and Ben Wallace is 6'9". And also, Ben Wallace really made Shaq work. Like, it's these kinds of plays on defense that do not show up on the box score. And then Chris Bosh, only one All-NBA team, but 7-time All-Star, I think, and was the face of the Raptors after Vince Carter left, and then went on to help the Heat win back-to-back championships and make 4 straight. And he sacrificed a lot to play with LeBron. He was definitely very selfless for that. Just wanted to win after 7 years of not even making it out of the first round in Toronto. And Bosh was an underrated defender too. Also, after LeBron left the Heat, imagine if the Heat did have Chris Bosh, because when he had blood clots in 2015, yeah, the Heat didn't make the playoffs, and then 2016, yeah, I'm sure of it that the Heat would have beat the Raptors that year. So congrats to Chris Bosh. Now Paul Pierce, yeah, horrible ESPN analyst, but great player nonetheless. And yeah, the Instagram story, that was funny, but also not something that I would have done if I were you. I mean, like, go ahead, have your fun, just don't let the whole world see you doing something like that when you're working for ESPN. But also a finals MVP, yeah, against my Lakers, and also making multiple All-Star games, was one of the best scorers in the game, but then sacrificed when the Big Three formed. So congrats to Paul Pierce. Oh yeah, I can't forget also the fact that you actually had a near-death experience when you got stabbed in 2000 and you were able to come back from that. So yeah, awesome stuff. So that's gonna wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Yeah, unscripted video. Let me know how I did. Please remember to like the video. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't yet. Please remember to hit that notification bell. Also, I keep forgetting to do this, but links to my social media are down in the description. So please be sure to follow them, and I'll talk to you next time.